Hello, Michigan, and welcome to my Fireside chat on marijuana. What I want to talk to you today is about legalization and what legalization is going to mean for the state of Michigan. So first, let's start with the history of marijuana. It's important to understand this history to understand how it became illegal in the United States in the first place and why we need to move towards full legalization. For thousands of years, marijuana has been used both medicinally and recreationally around the entire globe. The first known written reference to marijuana as a popular medicine is in 2900 BCE. In fact, our founding fathers grew hemp. It wasn't until the early 1900s that marijuana started to become vilified. The history of marijuana prohibition certainly has roots in racism. There's certainly also valid questions as to whether or not, as pharmaceutical companies developed other drugs for pain, that marijuana started being used less as a treatment for pain for profiteering. In 1930, Harry J. Anslinger was appointed Commissioner of the Federal Bureau of Narcotics. He is truly the founding father of marijuana prohibition in the United States. The medical community up until 1942 had always supported marijuana for use as a medicine. Throughout the 1900s, many different presidents did studies on the effects of marijuana, attempting to justify its criminalization. None of these studies ever came back with proof that marijuana was harmful. In the mid-90s, states began reclassifying marijuana and legalizing it for medicinal purposes, yet on the federal level, it still remains classified as a Schedule I drug. It wasn't until 2010 that the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs finally decided to relax marijuana rules for veterans for use for ailments like PTSD and other pain from their service. The first state to legalize medicinal marijuana was California on November 5, 1996. Michigan followed as the 13th state to legalize for medicinal use on November 4, 2008. And most recently, West Virginia was the 29th state to legalize medicinal marijuana on April 19, 2017. There are certainly other states that are going to follow this year in 2018 as well. There are 9 states that have legalized recreational marijuana so far. So let's discuss Harry Anslinger a little bit and what his role really was in the prohibition of marijuana. Harry Anslinger was appointed in 1930 as the first commissioner of the Federal Bureau of Narcotics. Initially, he had no problems with cannabis use, and later changed his mind, possibly in order to keep his job and stay in power for 32 years. Both cocaine and heroin were outlawed in the United States in 1914, but there was a very small minority of people that were using those two drugs. In order for Anslinger's Bureau's continued existence, he needed to go further than just cocaine and heroin, and so he set his sights on marijuana. He was able to use his influence to pass the Marijuana Tax Act of 1937. The major reason that Anslinger was so successful in marijuana prohibition was because of the racial tensions in our country at the time. In the 1930s, Jim Crow laws were rampant across the entire country, and Anslinger claimed that both Black people and Latinos were the primary users of marijuana. One of his claims was that smoking marijuana and using cannabis promoted interracial mixing and interracial relationships. Initially, the American Medical Association opposed this prohibition. It was the racial component of Anslinger's campaign that truly allowed marijuana to be outlawed for use medicinally as well. This is the drug war. I'll speak more to the issue of mass incarceration and how it relates to marijuana on a future Fireside chat on prisons and policing. The criminalization of marijuana users ramped up under President Nixon. Nixon's own Schaefer Commission recommended decriminalization for possession. The Drug Enforcement Administration was established by President Nixon in 1973. Yet the president used criminalization of marijuana as a way to attack his political opponents. This agency immediately began targeting peace activists and activists fighting for civil rights. In 1971, marijuana became classified as a Schedule I drug. When the DEA was founded, it started with less than 1,500 agents and a budget of under $75 million. Today, it has a budget of over $2 billion and employs around 5,000 agents. Today, many in our for-profit prison industry work on a consistent basis to defeat measures that would both reduce sentences and parole times for nonviolent drug offenders, while also continuing to obstruct any further research into medicinal marijuana, into hemp, and also into the recreational use of marijuana. Legalization of marijuana is going to drive down the profits of the for-profit prison industry in our country. Marijuana is currently listed as a Schedule I drug, which is defined as a drug with no currently accepted medical use and a high potential for abuse. It is listed with drugs like heroin, LSD, and ecstasy. Yet OxyContin and fentanyl, which we know are extremely deadly and dangerous drugs, are listed as Schedule II. Even CBD oil is classified as a Schedule I drug. The DEA is also in charge of classification of drugs instead of health agencies. The DEA both restricts marijuana studies and cites lack of research as a reason why they will not declassify marijuana as a Schedule I drug. The classification of marijuana as a Schedule I drug has caused a severe problem in the marijuana industry. This problem is banking. Because marijuana is federally illegal, many banks prohibit marijuana businesses from using their institutions because they could potentially lose their federal FDIC insurance. I worked in the banking industry for over a decade, and there are many regulations that banks need to adhere to in order to stay on par with the FDIC and with other federal regulations. Although banks could open accounts for marijuana businesses, they don't because of these strict regulations that they need to adhere to, and the expense that comes from those regulations. What the Treasury Department requires is that banks fill out suspicious activity reports, even in states where marijuana has been recreationally legalized. As more and more marijuana businesses open around the country, more and more of these reports are being filed on the federal level. Because of this continued Schedule I classification, and because banks will not take the risk to open bank accounts for many marijuana businesses, the marijuana industry is a heavy cash industry. How this is affecting state governments is truly from tax payments. Because the marijuana business is a cash-heavy business and is still federally illegal, this also puts business owners at risk for civil asset forfeiture. Especially here in Michigan, where many police departments, especially in urban areas, rely on the cash assets that come in from civil asset forfeiture laws to run their departments, our business owners are at risk. One of the major benefits to legalization is going to be the revenue that marijuana businesses bring to our state. Looking at the examples of the 9 other states that have legalized, we can really look and see what the potential is here in Michigan. It is estimated that in California, by 2020, just for recreational marijuana sales alone, could be worth $5 billion annually. Colorado is averaging $1 billion a year in sales, with a revenue of around $250 million. In just 3 states, Colorado, Washington, and Oregon, they have had a combined total of $1.3 billion in tax receipts. One of the things that Nevada is looking at doing is to model their marijuana industry after Amsterdam and ensuring that they can have coffee houses and lounges for people who want to use marijuana recreationally and socially. In just 4 months of legal sales from Nevada, there was $127 million in sales, with $19 million of that in tax revenue to the state. States that have legalized marijuana for recreational use have been seeing these sales climb every year. What these states have also been seeing is a drop of opioid overdoses. This is a really important component to marijuana legalization, that using marijuana for pain and having marijuana be more readily available is going to also stop some people's dependency on other hard drugs like heroin and the usage of other pills like OxyContin. I'll speak more to the opioid addiction and how marijuana can help this problem in a future fireside chat on public health. Lastly, let's get into hemp and how Michigan really has a unique opportunity to embrace the hemp crop and how we can also use that to bring additional revenue into our state and create new jobs and new small businesses around a new hemp industry. One of the most amazing things about hemp is it's one of the oldest domesticated crops known in human history. It has been used for thousands of years, and the oldest relic of human industry is actually a scrap of hemp fabric that dates back all the way to 8,000 BCE. One of the great benefits of hemp is it has a small environmental footprint. It doesn't require a lot of pesticides or herbicides, and it's a great rotation crop. In 2014, the U.S. Farm Bill allowed states to pass their own industrial hemp legislation to grow hemp for research and development, which means that here in Michigan, we can do the same as other states like Kentucky, Colorado, and Oregon. Some of the uses of hemp just from its stalk can be used in mulch, in fiberboard, in concrete, insulation, netting, canvas, clothes, shoes, even biofuel, paper products, and cardboard. The seed of a hemp plant can be used for many different purposes like bread, ink, cosmetics, and flour. There are 3 different varieties of cannabis used for industrial hemp, hemp oil, as well as the medicinal and recreational purposes. Hemp can be harvested for paper or wood after only 120 days after it was planted. The seeds are more nutritious as well as more economical to produce than soybean oil. Hemp can also be converted into a clean burning ethanol fuel. On an annual basis, 1 acre of hemp produces as much fiber as 2 to 3 acres of cotton. 1 acre of hemp in that same time frame will also produce as much paper as 2 to 4 acres of trees. Hemp can be used to produce strong, durable, environmentally friendly plastic substitutes. I think one of the most exciting uses for hemp that has the most potential to help us here in Michigan is concrete. We must start thinking out of the box for how we can use new technology, a new industry to transform Michigan's economy, and the legalization of marijuana is something that can do just that. If you are watching this chat before July, there is still time in certain counties for you to run for office under the Green Party ticket. If you are interested, please contact my campaign at info@kurland4mi.com. Include in your subject line, "I want to run." As always, I need your help to be successful. Any contribution that you can give, and you can donate at www.kurland4michigan.com/donate. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this fireside chat, and have a good afternoon, good evening, and good night.